Hello and welcome back to another episode If You Want to Do What with Dan and Julie. Today we've got Wayne on, who is a TV carpenter, but he's had a bit of a career change. Hi Wayne.
Hello there, Daniel.
How are we today?
I'm good. Yes, very good. Enjoying the sun, which is
It's lovely, isn't it? It makes such a difference.
Oh yes, it definitely does.
So should we jump straight in then? Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about what you do, Wayne?
What I do now. I'm a carpenter, so I'm a TV carpenter. So I specialize in makeover shows. So if any of you love interior design and have watched shows like Interior Design Masters or the Great Interior Design Challenge, I'm the builder on there. I usually wear orange so everyone can always find me. And I also do garden makeover shows. So I've worked on shows like Love Your Garden with Alan Titchmarsh and Garden Rescue with Charlie Dimmock. And I'm the DIY expert on a show with Alan called Love Your Weekend and Spring into Summer, which is a ITV show. So ultimately, anything DIY related, anything carpentry makeover show, you see a guy with an orange t-shirt, that's normally me.
So you're super busy then?
Yeah, do you know what? Absolutely. At the moment, we're kind of in the, third stage of lockdown, but the first, obviously when we did the first lockdown, the 3 months took the break and everything stopped, and in makeover world, everything happens in the summer because that's longer daylight hours and obviously gardening shows, it's all outside and all the plants are available. So everything literally stopped. But then soon as it eased a little bit and trades could go back to work and timber yards opened, it seemed that every show wanted to be made that had been put on hold, and so it went crazy. And then everyone's been in their house waiting to do up their house, so it seems that everybody wants everything building in their house. So if I'm being honest, my diary's never been so busy.
Well, I grew up watching Ground Force and Changing Rooms and I love shows like that. I think it's sort of everybody's bit of a guilty pleasure, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And interestingly, working with someone like Alan Titchmarsh, who, started Ground Force and working with Charlie Dimmock, they've got a passion for it. They love it, and it is infectious. And people like the reveal. And I've done so many different shows like 60-Minute Makeover, and like I say, Interior Design Master and Great Interior Design Challenge. But ultimately, they're all the same. You just want a nice, pretty reveal shot at the end. And not too many people have cried along the way. That's the aim.
So let's rewind a little bit, because being a TV carpenter isn't actually what you started out doing, is it, Wayne?
No. So I originally trained as an actor, and I went to drama college when I was 18. Moved from Leeds to London, and did the thing that I'd always ever wanted to do. And I think what's interesting, listening to this podcast of yours, I've listened to a few episodes, and you hear, when people are choosing their careers and what to do, and I see it with my daughter as well. Like you follow what you're good at, what makes you tick. And for me, performing, I was quite a shy kid, but I ended up enjoying. I could sing a bit, and then people like what you do, and you started doing more and more of it. And I ended up going to drama college, and I was there for 3 years. And I was one of the lucky ones in that I worked solidly. I had a really successful. It's really weird. I can say that about myself retrospectively. I think if I was still an actor, I don't think I could say this now. But looking back, I had a great career. So I worked in musical theatre. My first West End job was Rent, the original London production of Rent, which was of its time was like Hamilton of its time. It was like everybody wanted to be in that show. And I even in my audition for Rent, I was still at drama college, and they flew me to New York by myself to just meet the casting people and the producers and directors.
Wow, how cool is that?
And I got it, and then left drama college. Well, I started rehearsals in the final term of my third year at drama college, opened the show, and then kind of continued doing my classes in the day, but then I'd get swan into the West End and do the show at night. So I in terms of performing, it was the best ever gig. And I think I worked then I did about 4 original West End productions. So my last big musical was a show called Bombay Dreams, which was an Andrew Lloyd Webber production. And that's on where Wicked's on now. So it was in big theatre, 2,000 seater, and I played the lead in that. So I kind of, in musical theatre terms, I'd done brilliantly. You know, I'd got some great shows. And then, as most musical theatre actors do back then anyway, you were like, well, I want to do TV, changed my agent, and then got a detective series called DL and Pascoe, which is an old BBC One drama. And I got a regular role in that, and I did that for 2.5 years. So I'd kind of made the switch from musical. I make it sound really easy, but I think it was just luck, pure luck. And swapped, and then did TV for years. So in terms of, you know, swapping careers and saying things like that, I had a successful theatre and acting career, which I loved and never ever imagined I'd do anything different. But it's just amazing how life switches and things just evolve. And
what was the catalyst for? Because obviously, you know, you were in West End and you're in, you know, doing TV shows as Casualty, Holby City. You've done all these great TV shows, great West End shows. What point did you decide, do you know what, I'm going to completely change direction?
Well, I think it just slowly happened. So I'm 40, coming up to 43, 44. And my wife had we were pregnant with our daughter, and we were renovating our house. And so this was about 12 years ago when the first credit crunch, or the first credit crunch in my lifetime, happened, the big one, a financial crash. And we'd literally ripped our house apart. We had no roofs on it. We had nothing. And we, you know, borrowed money, and we were promised money from the bank. And then with the credit crunch, the bank said, look, we can lend you money, but not as much, about 30K less than what we agreed, because your house won't be worth what we thought it was worth when we originally did the mortgage application. And I remember just looking around going, well, you know, I can't afford to put the doors on. I can't afford to put the kitchen in. I need to do this myself to get my wife and baby back in the house, because we were living in a friend's spare bedroom. So and a bit of a caveat to my dad's a builder. So yeah. I literally then went, Dad, okay, how do I do skirting boards? How do I put a door on? How can I fit a kitchen? And I, you know, like we all do, you look on YouTube, and I learn, and I'm sitting in my lounge now, and there's bits that I did 12 years ago. So I started doing carpentry in the house, never thinking it was going to be a career. It was literally a needs must to get my wife and new baby into this house, and renovated it. And then with, you know, my wife, we've got a new baby, and you kind of need money, and my wife would pimp me on Facebook. She'd put like little pictures of the stuff I've made in the house, going, look, my husband, you know, if anybody wants any bits doing. So I started doing DIY for people, and, you know, wallpapering and painting and just general stuff. And it kind of took off, as in, you know, I'm quite an amenable guy, get on with people, and people would offer me little bits of jobs here and there. And then randomly, and again, just luck, I was working for this guy doing some floating shelves in his alcove, and he happened to be a TV producer who was creating this brand new interior design show called the Great Interior Design Challenge. And it was the first season. He was like, look, we need builders who don't mind being on TV. Would you mind doing it? And I actually nearly turned it down, just, you know, mainly out of fear, I think. I didn't want to look stupid. But my wife was like, just go for it. You know, do you think you can do the job they want you to do? Well, yeah, I think my carpentry is good enough. So we'll do it then. But interestingly, I never told them I was an actor. I never told anybody. I didn't want the people, you know, the show and those people to think that I was an actor pretending to be a carpenter. I kind of felt I had to prove myself. And so I started doing this makeover show, and I did 8 episodes. But I remember doing the last, and so I was still acting at the same time. I was kind of, you know, overlapping and, you know, doing bits and bobs, and the nature of being an actor as well. You were just waiting for jobs to come in. I remember the final episode of that first season of the Great Interior Design Challenge. We'd done the final, and when anyone finishes a job, they go, oh, you know, what are you going on to next? And I was like, oh, I'm going to go to Emmerdale next week. I'm working on Emmerdale. And, oh, you're building the set? I went, no, I've got a guest lead on Emmerdale. And at that point, I think the production crew and the camera crew and the contestants and all the other trades looked at me first with a bit of like, what the? And then when actually now we understand why you knew how not to stack a shot and how to not get in the shadow of the, the contestant and angle yourself so that you were seen and not, the back of your head. And then it became, luckily I'd proved myself as a carpenter, and they were like, okay, now this is just fun. So I kind of did both for a long time, about 4 years, 5 years. I was slowly making tractions within this TV makeover world. And once you're in there, it's like anything. They, once you get to know the exec producers and they like your work, they trust you, they get you in all the time. I was getting more and more carpentry work, but I was still doing the acting. And interestingly, just the things that I were enjoying the most slowly become the carpentry, slowly became the TV makeover world. And I actually was speaking to my old agent literally yesterday, and we were laughing about it. About 3 years ago, I got an email from my agent, and he used to just email going, "Hi, Alan, do you want to do this? This has come in." And normally I'd say no because the money was shocking, or it was away, or there's always some excuse. It was never, I'd always got a makeover show to do, and I kind of deflected it a bit, and I dreaded my agent calling because I thought, if they call and something comes in, then how am I going to get out of it? And I could feel myself getting more and more not wanting to do the acting in case it pulled me away from the makeover shows. And then it was a Friday evening, and I was sitting with my wife, and this email popped up from my agent going, there's a film come through with Colin Firth. It's 2 or 3 weeks filming in Budapest, and they need to meet you on Monday. They've kind of seen your show reel, you've kind of got it, but the director just needs to meet you, and because it's a guest lead, you've got a couple of scenes. Can you pop down to the studio on Monday and, just to sign it off? My first reaction was, I can't be bothered.
With Colin Firth, the movie deal, and you didn't want to do it.
Yeah, and my wife was like, can't you just do it just to meet Colin Firth? and I suddenly at that moment realised I shouldn't put my hat in the ring to act anymore. And it was really weird because, like I said from the beginning, it was the one thing I love. Singing and performing was always the thing that floated my boat, and I was good at it, and and people paid me to do it. But as soon as I'd made that decision, and I think like what you were saying, there was no big catalyst. It wasn't a big I'm not getting auditions anymore, no one will employ me. It was just I slowly did both side by side. And there was a moment when I was doing one of the interior design shows where it's like the traveling circus when you do those shows. You arrive in a house and there's a load of you there, and there's a load of contestants, a load of camera crew, and I've got my little gazebo with all my cutting stuff. And I remember feeling, and when you feel so content in your job, and you're like going, I know that I'm respected for what I'm doing. People like what I do here. I've got a great team around me. I can't do it without them. They can't do it without me. The bit that I'm loving is the banter with the lads, the hotel room. We all go back to the hotel, have a beer in the bar before, And I thought, well, actually, this is the bit that I love. And and then as soon as I emailed my agent to say, look, shall we just knock this acting malarkey on the head? Because I think I was holding out with the acting for another great DL and Pasco, another great drama, or a regular in something. And I thought, even if they offered me even if they offered me James Bond, and it's never going to happen, if they offered me this role, I don't think I'd take it. And that was really, because it would pull me away from everything I've just created in this makeover world as a carpenter. And I knew then instantly that I shouldn't do it. So as soon as I emailed him, I messaged him. I said, can we call on Monday? And I rang him, and he went, you don't want to do this anymore, do you? And I was like,
he knew.
No. And he went, I could see, yes, I've watched you grow within that world. And do you know what? Pop in, let's have a glass of champagne and toast your new career, and no hard feelings. So,
lovely way to end it.
Yeah. So that's how it swapped from doing, being a singer performer, and instantly, as soon as I did that, the joy changed in a total different way, and I love what I do now.
What a brilliant sort of story from the credit crunch and almost forcing you into having to, learn these skills and improve your skills in carpentry, and then it turning into this amazing career. What a great story to come out of the credit crunch. A great story.
Yeah, and it's weird because I remember being an actor thinking, people who gave up, going, "Oh, well, they've given up. They're not very good," and it's really weird because I kind of go, "Well, if you, and I said ahead of time, I've sent you both my CVs of my acting and this, and I remember looking at that CV. What I sent you was a picture that I put on my social media to say I'm not acting anymore, and I remember looking at it thinking, if someone had showed me this CV when I was 21, my acting CV when I was 21, that had been my career, I'd be well happy,
Yeah.
But I think you'll never feel totally satisfied as an actor because you're always looking at the next thing. But it wasn't until I stopped and looked at on a printed page of going, I know I'm not going to do any of these dramas anymore. I'm not going to sing for the Queen. I'm not going to do all of these things. But actually, I'm happy doing this now, and it gives me, I think it gives me more in a different way, in a very different way.
So how did you begin to, you mentioned your dad's a builder, but how did you begin to learn and improve your skill set of carpentry? Because you're very much in the public eye with your skills, and you have to be at a certain level where you can demonstrate things on TV. So how did you begin to improve and learn those skills?
To start off, it was very much YouTube. It's very much all of those things, and it's interesting because I teach DIY, and I do a lot of DIY classes, and I don't, I'm not. There's a difference between a carpenter and a joiner. I'm not a joiner who makes dovetail cabinetry. You know what I mean? And there's different degrees of this skill, and I nor have any desire to learn how to do a dovetail joint because no one wants to pay me for that. They want me to put MDF together and paint it, not nice. And interestingly, I always thought everyone could do it because my dad did it, and I'd kind of been grown up doing it. You kind of presume that everyone's at that level. So I've learned from the YouTube, from my dad, being surrounded by other trades that work on the industry. So I used to remember working with dad and his chippies and his builders. I'd learned from him. But then when I started doing the interior design show, it is about being quick and, throwing up wardrobes and fitted, and alcove storage. But because you have that drink with the lads in the bar because you're staying in a hotel, you can watch them and learn from them. But I think the thing that's made my carpentry successful is because I work with a lot of interior designers, and I think coming from, I don't know if it's the theatrical background, but coming from an artistic background where it's not always just about practical skills. It's about how the thoughts behind how you execute it, and just think a little bit out of the box with it. I think that's what stood me in ground. And if there's anything I didn't know, I would research it. I'd look into it. I'd watch YouTube videos, and then practice. And I'm working I've got a little garden studio workshop where I'll make stuff. So yeah, I haven't done any official formal training. I have learned on the job, but I think if anyone's listening to this wanting to go into carpentry or makeover shows or any of these kind of things, there's so many options in that you can do the official route. You can learn at college, and I recommend if you want to become a trade on a building site and you want to make do new builds and build houses from scratch, you need those qualifications. You need to learn how to do hand doors correctly and do all of those things, and you need the certificates to pass all of those. But equally, I know of a lot of people who contact me directly on social media, or there's lots of carpentry Facebook groups where you can go on there and say, look, I'm willing to learn and want to, does anyone want to do any work experience with me? And I, when this credit crunch first, not credit crunch, so when our Corona hit, we could go back to work. I know a lot of my acting friends weren't working. And I literally put on some of my social media, my wife's an actress as well, on her social media, saying, if there's anybody out there who's good at DIY but wants to learn how to do what I do, let me know. Come and follow me, and I'll give you some free training. Like literally, if I can teach somebody how to make a floating shelf, which is pretty simple, you don't need many tools, but you can earn 75, 80 quid a shelf, and people want 4 shelves in an alcove. So you can earn a couple of £100 just from just doing floating shelves in people's houses. So I had a few people following me, coming, with me on jobs, all, COVID secure. We were all, masked up, and they were in jobs where there was a lot of space. And I taught them, and now I've got friends who go off and do what I do, and have swapped from acting again and earning a living. So.
Wow.
So that's how I learned anyway, which is probably not the traditional route. Definitely.
Well, you say that, but there is so much available online now. The traditional route of, like you say, going to college, if you're going to go and work on building sites, it is probably a must. But if you want to learn a skill, there's no reason why you can't go online and find a course, or even just YouTube it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, and I sell courses and I teach people online as well. And I've got a YouTube channel. I don't put as much on there as I should, but I think it is available out there. And if you can lose, I always say sometimes you can lose your life in YouTube, and you end up spending so many hours on there. But if you find somebody who you can trust, and you like their work, and can explain it well enough, then just practice.
I think the first lockdown, I think I genuinely watched a whole series on YouTube about how to build an extension on a house. I've got no intentions of building an extension, but you just get lost down a rabbit hole, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. And again, with any DIY stuff, it is just confidence. Like I teach at the Idle Home Show on their main stage, and we'll get somebody at the audience to do a drill workshop with people, and people, get petrified even holding a drill, but within 5 minutes of them holding it, and you showing them some basics, you can see this little spark inside them, and they go, oh, I can do this, and there's a few tips and tricks, and then they go away with so much confidence, and I think for me, it's like I don't perform anymore, so I don't get that applause, right, and I never get that, da-da moment. But what I do now get it in a carpentry way. So I'll make something, and then the homeowner comes home, and I get to do my da-da, you look what I've made for you.
Yeah.
And and then you get that response from them, and you realize, like, for example, my wife, she wanted a king size bed making, so I made this king size bed with drawers on the side, and then there's this channel down the middle of the bed. It's like an 8-foot long empty space, and luckily we've got this long thin room, so I had this 6 foot long shoe drawer that pulled out from the base of the bed that went the full width of the length of the bed, and it puts all her shoes in it. My wife's a dancer, she's got enough shoes to last a lifetime, but that one post on our social media got more likes than the birth of our child.
Wow.
And you kind of go, if you can make something that makes people have that much reaction to it, that for me is the best round of applause I've ever had, So.
There's definitely something in actually making something, isn't there? And I think a lot of people now never get that satisfaction of a project, because work is very much just a workflow and processes you repeat and repeat and repeat for a lot of people. But making something is very much a beginning, a planning, and an ending, and that satisfaction that comes with that. Oh,
absolutely. And I noticed that, like I said, that moment when I was doing the show, and I sat back and just thought, like, I'm in the most content zone, because I turn up for 2 days. I don't have to price a job. I don't have to get materials. There's a runner going to get my MDF where I need it. They set up the gazebo. I get brought in. I bit of performing monkey, as in I make whatever they want me to make in the 2 days. And if I can't make it in the 2 days, then it's not my problem. It's the designer's issue. And I'll go, look, this isn't achievable in these 2 days, but I'll try my damned hardest to make it for you, And as well, I think it's about when you're working in that industry, and I think this is just generally for life, I'm very much be part of the solution, not the problem. So there's times where I'll go, okay, rather than go that cliche of a builder, scratch the head, oh, it's not going to happen. I'll go, look, that's not going to happen. But instead of making it out of circles, which take 3 times as long, if we can make it look 50 pence piece shape, where it's all straight lines, but I can give you the arch, but not as having to hand cut every circle, we can get it done. So I've created, you're always being part of the solution and being quite a positive outlook on it. I think that goes a long way, with any job, with going for anything. And I think if you are thinking of going into this industry, or you wanting to maybe shadow somebody, or if you ring me up and go, Wayne, I live locally to you, can I come and shadow you? The first thing I'll go is like, are you up for it? You know, are you going to be fun? Are you, I want somebody who's got a bit of an ounce about them, but actually is keen to learn. Rather, I have had people who I call them without being disparaging to millennials, who are just a bit, can't be bothered. And I've got a 12-year-old daughter, and I'm very much, for me, it's grit. And I think it's so easy to give our kids everything and fix everything for them so that they never have to struggle. And no one wants to see your family or your kids struggle. And very much with my wife, I'm like, let her not win at this. Let her have to work for it. Let her, I don't want her to give up at the first sight of something. And if she gives up, then she doesn't get the prize. And I think that's same in the workplace, that, you see so many people who just kind of expect to walk into an amazing job and earn a fortune straight off the bat. And actually, the bit that made me become a carpenter, the grit, was literally, my wife wasn't working. She's a West End leading lady in her own right. And she was pregnant, and then she had a baby. So she was off work for 2 years. The credit crunch had hit. I wasn't particularly working. We'd renovated the house. I needed to earn some money. So the grit was, well, I need to watch these videos. I need to learn how to do this. And, luckily we had support of our family. So, if anything dire, we could always ring our parents. But I kind of wanted to do it all on my own as well. But I remember that night when we got into this house, I'd renovated it. My wife and daughter moved, like when the baby had been born, and my wife lived with her mum for 4 weeks up in Wakefield, and we live in London. And I remember thinking I had 4 weeks in this house by myself, finishing it, getting it finished, painted, getting it all done. And the night that they moved in, I don't mind telling you, I sobbed. Like, we were laid in bed, like literally the three of us in bed together, and she was like, and I was crying. She went, "Why are you crying?" I went, "I did it. We got it." But it is that
such an achievement, isn't it?
Yeah, I couldn't watch any grand design programs for like a year. I couldn't cope with anyone else going through the trauma of not having enough money and maxing your credit card out at the time and putting a kitchen. But I think that, again, I think whatever age you are, and again, I don't want to be disparaging to the younger generation, but you can be whatever age. But if you've got a bit of something about you where you just get involved and you show that you're keen to learn, people want to teach you. People, if you ask, I've realized as well, in anything that I want to learn, if I ask it, and people will happily spill their guts about it. Like you've asked me, we've never met up until you introduced yourself and we chatted about doing this. People are willing to share their knowledge for free if you think somebody wants to listen. I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I would teach anybody who's thinking of changing career.
I think you make such a good point as well. I do some consulting for some businesses, and one of them is in the construction industry, and they've got some apprentices. And since I've been doing the consulting there, they've had 3 or 4 apprentices, and there's just one that sort of is still there. And it's just down to attitude. This guy turns up early. He's always asking questions. He wants to get on. He wants to do his courses at college. And that's just what you've got. It's such a competitive marketplace for jobs for our generation. That's what you've got to be like. You've got to be relentlessly enthusiastic. And you're right. Ask the questions.
Oh, absolutely. And I listened to something recently. I'm a huge podcast listener, so this sparked joy when you asked me to do this. I listen to loads, but there's an element of I can't remember who it was, but they talked about passion. So when people talk about, and I think it's a wrong thing when people go, well, if you follow your passion, you'll always be happy and doing job. And like I said, I never once imagined that cutting wood was something that I would be passionate about it. I saw my dad do it. I saw all my uncles have done it. I want to be a singer, and I realised that I didn't have a passion for singing when I first started. It was just something that I could do, and people. I remember being a kid and my mum going, "Oh, you've got a nice voice." So then you kind of go, "Ooh, that's nice." And then you do a little bit more, you do a bit of Amdram, and you work your way up. And then, okay, you go to college and you get in, so people listen to you, and and you get a little bit of an applause, and you go step. And then it became a passion. So it wasn't a passion to start with. It was something that I liked and I got a bit of reaction for, and I found my little place, my little tribe of friends, and the same drama club and all of those things, and it became my passion, and I loved it. And like I said, I never imagined when I was doing it that I would ever do anything else. And then what happened is the carpentry, through necessity doing carpentry, I never dreamed that I would give up singing, playing principals in the West End to cut wood, but started doing a bit more of it, realized I was enjoying it, got good at it. People again would stop and go, your work's quite good, or can I work with Wayne, because I like working with him and I like what he's creating. And then that became my passion, and now I do my passion. So I think when people would say, if you do the job you love, you're never going to work a day in your life, and it's true, but I don't think you necessarily know what it is yet. So if anybody's out there listening to this and going, oh, well, I haven't got a passion, I don't perform, or I don't love carpentry, and I don't, but actually if you're good at something that naturally just kind of comes to you, you don't have to work that hard at it, but it's there, you've got a natural aptitude to it. It might not spark joy. If you start doing more of it, then it'll become a passion. I remember hearing that from somebody going, oh my God, that's so true. And like I said, I've had two really successful careers in all intents and purposes. I've just filmed an episode of this new primetime show called Spring into Summer with Alan Titchmarsh as his DIY expert.
How cool.
I would never dream of getting that or doing that. But I am passionate about it now. So if, like I say, anyone who's thinking of changing career or going into something else, or even still doesn't know what it is they want to do, just follow those, I don't want to say follow your heart, because it sounds like that's the one thing you've ever wanted to do. But just do something that you're all right at.
That's
and I guarantee it could become a passion.
I think it's about trying different things as well. We get told, or certainly people used to get told, that you do one thing, you become very good at that one thing, and that's it. Regardless if you like that thing or not. If you're good at it, then you'll be fine. But I think we're very lucky as certainly our generation, and in their early 20s up to their 30s and into your mid 30s, certainly we have the opportunity now to try different things, and build skills in different areas, and you might find something that you genuinely love.
Absolutely. And it's like, it really is the building block of life. So me doing what I do now, as a carpenter, is very different to, like I say, when I was performing. But the things I've learned as a performer make this job easier. So
yeah, I was going to ask that actually.
Yeah, just the idea of, I can chat to people. I can go into somebody's house and have a nice conversation with somebody about random stuff, because I like people. I like talking to people. I like having a conversation with them. And then they instantly trust you, and they kind of go, okay, I don't mind this guy being in my house because he's fine, and we get on. And then we start talking about the carpentry. And half the time when I go price jobs, I tend to talk myself out of more jobs than I get. But what I'll do is I'll go, actually, you've asked me to do this understair storage. I think you're wasting your time here, as in financially it's going to cost you this amount, and you're not going to gain that much storage there because X, Y, and Z. And then they trust you even more, because you're going, well, he's not going to rob me now because he's actually talking about the job. And then they go, actually, while you're here, can you just come and look at these walk-in wardrobes then? And then I'll end up doing that. So I think my whole point of me saying that is I've learned to talk to people. I've learned to have a conversation and chat. And that gets me through the door, and that gets me the job later on down the line, and ultimately they trust me.
I think you've just proved the point, and we talk about this a lot on the podcast about careers nowadays. Our generation are certainly not going to have 50-year careers because of the rate of change in all different industries. It will always be evolving, but for us, it's about building skill sets, and exactly what you've described. You built a skill set in acting, and you've built now a skill set in carpentry, and you've combined those, and you've shot to the top of the carpentry and the makeover TV world, right? You're now the go-to guy for these TV shows.
Yeah.
So it just shows you that building those skill sets and investing a bit of time and learning different things, even if you don't think, oh, is it a career, it will lead to something eventually.
Oh, absolutely. And I think what's interesting as well is my wife reminds me of this a lot. I nearly didn't do that first makeup show, and when I got the phone call about it, and I rang my wife. I was doing some fitted wardrobe for somebody, and I rang my wife, said, I've just been offered this job, but I don't know if I should take it. And then she listened to me talk for a bit, and then she went, why are you doubting it? Do you think you can do it? I went, well, yeah, it's just flat pack furniture and putting up shelves, and she went, well, why are you doubting it then? Are you scared you're going to look silly? I said, well, I don't know. And she went, oh, just get over yourself and do it. and she was right. And I think especially even more so now, people are scared to fail because of social media, because of everything that, it's become quite bubbled, and you don't want to look a fool. My biggest advice is, like, what's the worst can happen? Realistically, my wife said that what is the worst can happen? It doesn't work out and you'll never work with these people again. Well, you're never going to work with them again, because you'll never get to work with them if you never do it. So I was like, oh, okay, it's not really going to affect me. I'm not packing parachutes. No one's going to die. All will happen is the shelf will fall down, and then they won't employ me again, and that's fine. And literally, the moment that first episode I did, my first episode I did, I had to fit a wardrobe, and I rocked up with an Aldi bag of tools. I get you not. I had a chop saw, an Aldi bag of tools, a drill, and I was cutting timber off the edge of a curb, right? And all the other builders, because they'd done 4 or 5 episodes before me, and I joined them. They all had all the tools, the vans, everything laid out. And I remember just, going, I just need to concentrate and get my contestant through. And my contestant won that episode. The exec producer who booked me was like, "Love your stuff. This is amazing. You're booked now for all of them." And then literally 2 episodes later, he went, "Yeah, Wayne, we need to buy a few more tools. We love what you do, but you need to buy this kit, And I did. And then I've been part of that core team since from then onwards. But I think you just got to put yourself out there. And like I said, what's the worst can happen? In any industry, fake it till you make it, bro.
Yeah. So many people have no idea what they're doing, and we all think everybody knows what they're doing, but they don't.
Oh, all the time, mate. All the time. But the more you do, the confidence you get, and and I teach this in DIY. I teach people, like I say, how to drill and how to do these things. And I work on garden makeover shows. I work on all these TV shows. And they all started that first, and even like I've got my own podcast, and I interview people from the world of makeover shows. And I interviewed Alan Titchmarsh, and and I've worked with him quite a lot. And he came on, and I remember saying to him, "What would you remember that first time, like on TV?" And he was like, "You're shooting yourself." So I ain't got a clue what I was doing. I used to write for a magazine, and then they put a camera in front of my head, and and I watch him now, and I work with him now, and he's so generous and so. Helps you wherever he can, and do whatever he can for anybody. And I think everyone starts somewhere. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. I mean, us personally with this podcast, obviously, we look to make new content, and we talked about this a couple of times. When the new social media TikTok came out, we tried to make a couple of videos, but I couldn't do it. As soon as I turned the camera on, I became like a babbling sort of mess in front of the camera. And have you got any tips for sort of maybe people that are looking going into the TV industry or producing their own content about being a bit more relaxed and how to come across natural? And I guess the acting helped you with that.
But you know what? It's interesting because when I was an actor, I hated being myself. I didn't like the way I talked. I didn't like the way I looked. Whereas when I was an actor, I could use a script, and I hid behind the character that I was told before. And interestingly, now everything I do is me, and it's me who has to talk, and I very rarely script anything. I give myself bullet points and just talk down the lens and have a conversation. So it's interesting because the bit that I hated the most about being an actor was being myself. And actually what relies on being successful on social media is being yourself. And people buy into people. And that thing of now when I film a YouTube clip, or I film an Instagram post, or I film any of the TV stuff, I just look down the lens and imagine one person that I'm talking to. generally I'm quite smiley because I think people buy into friendly, happy people.
Hmm.
And if it goes wrong, be honest about it as well. That when it's when people put on their telephone voice and kind of try to be somebody they're not. That's when you see through it. And I think that's what makes people successful presenters or successful YouTubers or blog. My daughter watches so many TikTok stuff and all these things, and Miranda sings and all these different people, and you watch them and go, they're just being them. That people like real. So I
It
think
is a hard thing to do, though, isn't it?
it is. Yes.
In a way, it's when you turn the camera on, I think thoughts go through your head, don't they? Oh my God, people are going to see this. And it's hard to be natural, but I guess the more you do it, the easier it becomes, maybe.
Absolutely. And again, when I do my podcast, I talk to one person. So because generally most people, the person who's listening to this will have it in their ears while they're walking to work or walking the dog or whatever. And that one person I'm speaking to is the one person. So I tend not to, if you're doing any social media, don't go, hi guys, hi big group of people, because it's not personal to them. They go, well, I'm one of many. Whereas if you go, how are you today? This person who's listening to this, I hope, it's coming across. I hope you're gaining a lot from this. If you need me, and you kind of, you talk as if it's just one person. So whenever I film, I imagine my target audience. So I was filming this new Alan Titchmarsh show, and I'm teaching, the nation how to make a seated arbor. And it's me talking down the lens, talking about what kind of wood to use or what glue or whatever. But I've got one. And there's a single mum who's been on my DIY course. I've taught how to use a drill. I talk to her because I know what she knows. I know what she doesn't know. I know the kind of things she wants to learn from. So she's my target audience. She's got some DIY knowledge, but not loads. So if I talk to her down the lens, then I feel like everyone will get something from that. They'll take that on as them. So I think that probably would be my biggest piece of advice if you're doing any social media posts or anything like that. And again, if you write a blog or if I write a newsletter that goes out every week, I target it to her so that I'm writing, my brand and everything is aimed at this one person that feeds that.
That's a really good point as well, because definitely what you're doing and becoming this DIY go-to expert for all these great TV shows, you're building a personal brand. And how important is that to you? And do you leverage social media, websites? How are you sort of building that?
So like I said at the beginning, if you watch any makeover show and you see an orange T-shirt, it's me. And that became, when I originally started, I started a Facebook group called the DIY Doers, which is aimed at if you have any DIY questions. And we got rid of that whole, DIY disaster. It was all positive. And we thought, well, what branding can I use that is very positive, makes you think of DIY. So I chose orange because you think B&Q, right? So just a simple thing. It's an orange T-shirt, but what that does as well, because I work across BBC and ITV, you can't wear branded shirts, so I didn't want any branding. I thought, well, it means that originally it started because I want to get a bit of a show reel together, a few clips of all the stuff I've done. I thought, well, if it's all orange, it'll all look kind of uniformed as well. And then that became the thing. So all my website has orange in it. All my social media posts is backgrounded with orange. My grid is very orange. But what it's done, and I've been doing that for about 8 years, is interesting. Now, recently the final of this makeover show was on. People I don't even know go, oh, that's the guy in orange, the Carpentry in orange. Or now, like I was filming this new Alan Titchmarsh show, and there's a lady there who was doing a guest spot on another item, and she came over to me because she could see me building this thing. She went, "Are you on the interior design master?" I went, "Yeah." She went, "I recognise you from your orange." So it's it's little things like that that help. Using social media, whatever I do, if I post anything or if I jump on anybody else's Facebook group or anything like that, I always offer something. I never just shout about my Facebook group or my whatever I'm working on at the time. I'll answer questions, I'll give value, add value, and then at the end of it go, oh, if you want any more information, just pop over here. Or with this interior design show, people were hungry for it. It was a huge success, this recent makeover show. And I I would post the day after the show had aired. I'd post a load of behind the scenes footage of the show. So all the people love a good behind the scenes footage, with the cameras, or some close-ups of all the details that don't get shown in the show. But the last clip was a picture of my podcast, which might be interviewing somebody connected to that show. So people didn't, even those hosts of those Facebook groups, didn't mind me adding that last slide, because they'd got 9 other pictures that nobody else would have had, and that they're, if they've got 40,000 people on their Facebook group, they were loving it. Every Wednesday they would get a load of behind the scenes footage, and they didn't mind you throwing in a last minute picture. And I think as long as whatever you do, whatever business, if you're promoting yourself, if you can throw in a load of value, and then the last one is a little bit of self-promotion, then people are happy with that. And I think everything I do has that stance on it and has that take on it.
Great point. Is there 2 sort of really good tips from yourself about if anybody wants to get into the world of sort of TV? How do you even go about sort of starting that, I guess?
In as what, or there's so many different jobs in there. So
yeah, I guess sort of going into these worlds of makeover shows. How do you start as a runner? Can you go in, and if you want to end up actually on the show, how do you go about that?
So if you want to go in general TV production, you would start off as a runner, and there's 2 sides to it. There's like editorial, which means you do all the researching and all that kind of stuff, and then there's production. So production is logistics and organizing hotels and making sure gazebos are set up and all of these things. And they've changed the title now. I think they're called researchers and junior researchers. Again, it is the bottom of the rung, but there's people who I met 8 years ago who went in as a junior researcher, who were literally carrying my sheets of MDF for me, setting up my gazebo, getting me coffee, who now ring me and book me. The guy who was getting me coffee was the guy who employed me for the Alan Titchmarsh show.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
And he now has his own production company, and he works his way up. So that's how it's done. And it relies on that fresh meat coming in to learn. And like we said, when you were working, you were saying you had 3 guys coming through, and it's that one guy who was the one asking questions, learning about it. And I remember that guy who's now booked me for this Alan Titchmarsh show. He was like, so the camera guy, can you show me how to use this? And the camera guy was like, I'm sick of shooting. Put it on your shoulder and I'll show you. Help you. You can do the end of days. You can do and everyone knows that everyone needs to learn. So I think approach production companies. That's it. So if, for example, a show like Bake Off, it's on. Is it on BBC now? I can't remember. Or is it?
Is it Channel 4 now?
Channel 4. Yeah, it went from BBC to Channel 4.
Yeah.
So Channel 4 don't make Bake Off, for example. A production company will make Bake Off for Channel 4. So Channel 4 will say, we're doing Bake Off, we put it out to tender. Production company will go, we'll make it for X amount. They'll make it, and then they'll give it back to Channel 4 to air. So you need to find, whenever you watch any TV program, whether it's a drama, a makeover show, Bake Off, at the end, they'll have a banner that will show what the production company is. Look for that production company online, and then there'll always be like positions available. There'll always be, jobs going on there for trainees. If you want to work with us, apply here. So, and that goes for anything, any show, any drama, and approach the production companies. They're the people that you need to contact. So I think that's the best way to get into TV.
Great tip. And final sort of question for us is, would you still have done that career change now?
I think I would.
Yeah?
Because it's interesting. Like, I've got such a respect for theatre, and I love watching it. And like I said, my wife's an actress, and what she does is amazing. But I think this is the thing that really floats my boat. And I enjoy the most.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Wayne. It's been really interesting to hear about your career change.
You're welcome. It's been an absolute joy, and I hope that the listener there when I'm there in their ears as they're doing their dog walk or when they're going to work, has enjoyed it and got something from it.
And where can people find you on social media, your website, and anything like that?
Yeah, so you can, if you go onto I've got a website called thetvcarpenter.com, and on there it has links to my TV Carpenter podcast, and also all my social media. I'm on mainly Instagram as the TV Carpenter. But like I said, if you go onto the website, thetvcarpenter.com, it links to everything on there.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much, Wayne.
You're welcome, my friend.